I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Andy Mant, and this is Your Superior Self.
This is Bri Seeley, and you are listening to Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Take the time to thank those who have served and remember those who paid the ultimate price. Thank you to all the servicemen and women out there who protect our country, who protect my freedoms. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your service. And for those who got down to the beach this weekend, you lucky dogs. Yesterday was an amazing day. It was like 80 and clear. It was amazing. And you guys got down there and there was no crowds and you essentially had a massive beach to yourselves. I can't wait to get down to like Fenwick Island and hang out and visit some of my favorite spots. Papa Grande's is legit. If you guys have never been there, you have to try I think it's the blueberry jalapeno margarita. Oh my gosh. It hits the spot. Like I was never a big margarita fan until my wife ordered it and didn't like it because she thought it was too spicy. And I tried it and I've been hooked. Like I can't get enough. It's crazy. Their food's really good too. However, their margaritas are on point. So if you're a big margarita fan, check out Papa Grande's down in Fenwick Island, Delaware. And while you're there, you might as well, travel across the street to Harpoon Hannah's. They have an amazing selection of drinks. And I know this sounds like a commercial, but that's how much I miss Fenwick Island right now. Like I'm literally talking about the places that I love to go to like it's a commercial. They're not a sponsor yet, but hit up Papa Grande's and Harpoon Hannah's. Tell them I sent you. They don't know who I am, but one day they will. And they hand me over a sponsor check. You can also check out tailor-made. It's a fishing brand over in Delaware. It stands for Delaware Made. It was created by some guys in Sussex County. And that's where I'm from. So I have a soft spot for them and their brand. I'm wearing their shirt right now, and I just ordered another one for summertime. So we do a lot of surf fishing in Delaware. Just got my surfing tags this week. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to get out there and surf fish and hang out and watch the kids swim and drink a couple IPAs, maybe a couple Dogfish Heads, another Delaware brand. I mean, I didn't realize how supportive I am of the Delaware economy as I'm sitting here talking about it. But they make good stuff. They make really good stuff. I'm interested in hearing more about your favorite IPA, though. I've been a big Dogfish Head fan forever. However, I'm kind of nervous about, I like Baltimore brands too. Union, they got the Eddie Murray brand IPA, which is really good. And another one that's like seasonal. It's like in the fall. It's called Foxy something. But I'm really trying to venture out a little bit more, and I'm a big IPA guy. So if you guys have like any IPAs that you think are really good, especially for summertime, shoot me a note. Go to yoursuperiorself.com. Let me know your favorite IPA in the summer, because there's nothing better than out there fishing. It's hot or getting done cutting the grass like I did yesterday, and you just want to grab a beer or something like that and sit out with your kids and enjoy the time that we have with them. But getting back to today's guest, Bri Seeley, she is I'm going to do something a little different. So for those who are not driving and you can actually Google something without endangering anyone, I want you to Google entrepreneur coach. And she is the first search result that comes up in that search box. I guess, is it a search box? In that search, Bri Seeley is the first that pops up whenever you enter that into Google. And think about all the algorithms and the keywords and all that Google analytics. I mean, that's crazy to be able to be the first the top search result for entrepreneur coach. I mean, that's pretty legit. And to prove her legitimacy at the number one seed on Google search, I have a small clip here with Bri and myself.
And for me, like, it's interesting that figuring out who I am has been more of an unlearning process than a learning process.
Unlearning process. Like, all right, hit on that.
Well, because what you mentioned, like, being in high school, and I feel like as we're growing up, we get all of these kind of like expectations and layers and understandings and things put on us that may or may not be ours, and they're put on us by our parents or society or our culture or, you know, any of these various things. I'll give you a prime example, right? As women, the second we are born, we are literally expected to be mothers. I went to visit a girlfriend of mine who just had a baby, and she had a daughter, and you know, I'm visiting the baby in the hospital or whatever, and someone said something about like, oh, when she's a mom, and I was like, dude, she's less than a week old, and you're already projecting upon her your expectations of who you think she should be. What if she doesn't want to be a mom? Like, what have you ever considered that? And so, like, so much of me getting to the core of who I am has been shedding and letting go of all of the layers and expectations that other people, society, culture, everything is like placed upon me.
And that is why Bri is the number one search result in the Google search for entrepreneur coach. Bri is also the member of the Forbes Coach Council and the author of the best-selling book Permission to Leap. She's been seen on the Today Show, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Yahoo. I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. I emailed her right after I listened to it, and I was like, this is straight fire. Like, this is one of those episodes that's going to be really powerful and inspirational for some people. Like, we just don't talk about like entrepreneur jargon. We talk about spirituality, the universe. I mean, I think reincarnation's a little bit in here too. We talk about Bri's great-grandmom, who was a baller back in the day, who lost everything in her name to make that leap of faith and to make a decision to do something for herself, which I think will inspire a ton of people. And just to give you a heads up, this episode was recorded like 2 or 3 months ago. So the COVID pandemic was very early on. I can't even remember if we had restrictions in place. I don't think we did, but it's interesting to hear like my thought process and her thought process about the whole entire pandemic, just because where we are today and what's going on. But I cannot wait. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the one and only Bri Seeley. Bri, what is up? How are you?
Hello, I am well. How are you?
Feeling all the pressures in the world right now, Bri. I know you are too. It's crazy, but I am going to try to keep this thing positive, and I love talking to you, so I know that this is going to be a constructive conversation.
Thank you. And, you know, one of the things I've been doing just with all the craziness is just continuing to like center myself and meditate a ton and like tap into my truth. So hopefully this episode, even if we do talk about, you know, some more difficult things, will still be a source of inspiration and light in some kind of chaotic and unsettling times.
Sure. So what do you got going? Like let's just go from the beginning, right? Like, so how did you get into this? How did you become a coach? Let's tell your story.
Yes. So I firmly believe that the universe has just been leaving me breadcrumbs for my entire life, and that my getting to where I am has literally just been like picking up the breadcrumbs that the universe has been laying at my feet. And so when I was little, raised by a single mom, would go to work with her, started training her employees how to use the cash register when I was 5. I would restock the shelves. I was helping her, you know, like run the business and as much as I could, right, when I was 5. Then she moved into another business and I helped her a bunch. It was a home-based business. Then my family bought a candy store, and I basically in the summertime would like run the candy store, navigating restocking, orders, doing scheduling, hiring team members, all that stuff. And thought that when I went into college and grad school that I did not want to be an entrepreneur, but that's of course exactly where the universe led me back to. Graduated from both degrees in fashion, moved to Seattle, got a day job, and wanted to keep my creativity alive. So I started my own fashion label, thinking, oh, it'll just be something fun. I'll do it for my creativity, like a hobby on the side. But I registered a business license and made it legit. And little by little, every single year over a course of 8 years, it just kept growing and growing and growing. I went from making like a flower girl dress to like being on the runway at LA Fashion Week and dressing contestants from The Bachelor and being on the cover of Apparel News and being picked up by Zappos. And towards the end of my 8th year, I had started to realize that I was increasingly frustrated. I felt like I was running on a hamster wheel and like just not getting anywhere, just expending all this energy, and was exhausted and not seeing the results I wanted. And literally 5 years ago next week, I was in meditation, spring equinox, and heard this very clear, shut it down, walk away, fashion is not it. And everyone's like, you really just like got a voice in meditation and like did it? And I'm like, yeah, I did, because at the time it was a relief. I was so unhappy in my fashion business. And so once I closed it, I literally closed my fashion business within 72 hours of that meditation. And it felt like a breath of fresh air. So once I closed it, I had all this space to be like, okay, what's next? And what I realized was that people had been emailing me for years, being like, how did you build such a successful business? You're so great at what you do. I want to learn from you. Can you teach me how to do the same? And I had told everyone no, because I was like, I'm a fashion designer. Like, you can go find a business mentor somewhere else. That's not my jam. And kind of just sat back and realized that I loved being an entrepreneur. I did not love being in the business of fashion, and other people wanted to learn from me. And so I just kind of was like, all right, what if I try this thing? And started coaching people. And to mention, the 8 years I was running my fashion business, I also had my day job still the whole time I had it. And I was a counselor as my day job. So I had 8 years of counseling experience, 8 years of entrepreneurial experience, combined essentially both of those things to come out as a coach. And then I didn't always work with just entrepreneurs. That is something that's happened. I mean, I guess it happened more within like the first year of my business. But yeah, now I feel like it's just a lifetime accumulation of like the universe leading me to exactly this point in time.
I love how you said the universe. I think that's huge. I think we don't have enough, people don't have enough faith in that, right?
Yeah.
What kind of counseling did you do?
I was a vocational rehabilitation counselor and certified disability management specialist. I worked in the state of Washington doing workers' compensation counseling. So it was helping people who have been injured on the job to get back into the workforce. And so it was everything from negotiating with their old employers to try to get them to create job accommodations for them, all the way to if like none of the options were available, to getting them retrained, getting them back into the workforce in some sort of new capacity. And so the thing that I think is kind of interesting is that I hated that job. I said no to that job 5 times before I took it. And I only took it for money. And I hated it for 8 years. It was not a job that I wanted to do. But what's so interesting even to me now with this whole breadcrumb thing is I'm basically doing something pretty similar-ish now, but with people that actually want to be helped. Because a lot of the people that were injured on the job it wasn't something they wanted or that they planned for. And a lot of people were very victimized by it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting even how that ties in to my story.
Yeah, it's crazy how life, the universe, like kind of like molds us right into essentially what we are today. Like you look back on your life and you see all the ups and downs and time periods where you thought, why was that happening to me? And it's really building you up for what's next in your life, really. Like I feel like everything, like even the bad stuff, like even the really, really bad
Totally.
stuff is
Especially
100%.
the bad stuff.
Yeah, it's 100% for you to create who you are right now. And you might not like who you are right now, but you're still being molded for your future self.
Yeah. I say a lot all the time, like, as it turns out, the universe actually knows what it's doing. And so even looking back on stuff like that, to me, it gives me much more faith in the present moment,
Mm-hmm.
to not question and really truly like worry less. Because I'm like, really at the end of the day, the universe is like supporting me in such immensely beautiful ways that, like, who am I to question it? I'm a mere human. I have no right to question what's happening or what I'm being put through or what I'm facing, because the universe knows what it's doing. It's pretty smart, I think.
Yeah, it's all beings, right? It's all consciousness. It's everything. It's everything that's beautiful. It's everything that's ugly. Speaking of which, depending on when this airs, we are going through a pandemic, the coronavirus, and I kind of toyed with the notion of not bringing that up, but I feel like it is important to talk about that, especially with your profession and what you're going through today. Like, I mean, this right now, like we just talked about life happens for you. Like what, like in your mind right now, like, I mean, do you see a positive outcome coming from this?
So here's the hard, unpopular thing, and this might get a little uncomfortable for some people, but this is my take on it. And this is by no means to diminish any of the lives that have been lost in any of the pandemics that have been happening since the inception of the human race, right? Like, this is just a modern day plague, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, this is in no way to diminish that at all. But, the way that I look at this is the largest, most deadly virus that exists on our planet today is the human race.
Mm.
And if I were Mother Earth and my body was being inhibited by a pretty aggressive virus that was slowly killing me, I would develop antibodies and things to try and navigate and mitigate that virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you look back over, like I mentioned, like the plague and all these other, 1918 flu, and people are like mentioning all these historic things. And it's like, yeah, Mother Earth kind of like does what she has to do to like keep the ecosystem of the planet at least somewhat in, like, it's also explains a lot of the natural disasters that have happened over the last several years. And like, it's a hard perspective to have. It's like I said, I don't want to negate any of the pain or the hurt or the suffering that has gone along with this, but it's also pretty true.
Mm. The one thing that is really going to show after this is like you see people on Facebook, right? You see people in society that are all positive vibes, that are all, they're quick with the quotes from books, and are the coaches that are really that are preaching positivity and blah blah blah. Like, this is going to test them. This is going to test their content. This is going to test who they are. This is going to test a lot of people, because it's something that we never dealt with before, especially in my generation. I'm doing some research, and the only thing that I've seen as far as something of this nature is 1918, the flu epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
obviously we weren't alive then, but my ancestors were, and they made it through, and I'm here today. But it's going to test a lot of people. It's going to see what you're made of. And are you going to, well, go ahead.
In my opinion too, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we started off this conversation talking about, like, I have been in like extra meditation the last few days because I can feel the collective unrest, and it's like really troubling energetically for me. And so like, I've been dropping into meditation extra. I've been, in child's pose, just crying. I've been like really letting myself move through a lot of these things and like trying to stay positive and trying to, stay in a really healthy space. But the thing that gets me about I'm unwilling to see any negativity in the world, like that perspective, is that we as humans we as souls did not come to this planet to be humans, to only have a partial experience of humanity. So for me, like, there is beauty in holding space for the darkness as much as there is the light. And when I personally see people online that are just like, love and light, like, I can't talk about anything negative, what that says to me is that they're bypassing all sorts of emotions and experiences and human things that we came here as souls to experience. Mm-hmm. So, for me, it's very telling. I try to kind of stay, or at least like keep my distance from the positive, the only positive people, because for me, that's not real. That's mm-hmm. not the purpose of why we came to this mm-hmm. planet, to be humans, with souls inside of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to have the class, like the life class. This, the soul, like you said, has to learn. And this is, this is going to test it. This is, what are you made of? Are you going to be able to endure? Are you going to be able to withstand? And we are. I mean, we're everything is going to change very fast, and it's going to be scary because we don't know, how many people are going to be. We don't know how many people are going to get diagnosed with this, and we don't know what, some people may experience, large populated areas like New York are going to experience a high volume of people that are going to be infected with it. And the hospitals are definitely not staffed, and they're not, in my opinion, prepared for this. And that's what's going to be scary. It's not necessarily the virus that's going to scare me. It's going to be the reaction. It's going to be, the stock market plunging. It's going to be people, spreading rumors, spreading bad information, like Facebook, social media. That scares me. And it's kind of like, I got to take a step back. And, I understand, like, Maryland, New York has to do what they have to do and declare a state of emergency, and kids are going to be out of school, and that's just the process. But I have to take a step back and, like you're doing, meditate, kind of recenter, and become one with my true self, with the soul self, and just realize that we're here for a lesson, and this is just one of those lessons, and it's going to help us evolve. But not evolve, but it's going to help us learn, more about life and what it is to be human.
Well, and my hope is that, for me, all those things that you just mentioned, the stock market and like all of that stuff, like, that's just there all day, every day. Mm-hmm. Like, really what this pandemic is doing is it's just magnifying problems that are already existing mm-hmm. in our world. And so, my only hope through all of this, and unfortunately, I'm not putting a lot of weight or stock in this, because as we've seen, we've had multiple outbreaks like this. I remember the swine flu and the bird flu and SARS, and like I remember a lot of these things that have happened. They happened in increasing frequency as well. There have been multiple that have happened since, like, it was like between 1918 and then it was like 1957, and then like in the last, 20 years or something, there's been one every like 4 or 5 years. And so, for me, it's like, well, the frequency is increasing because there's an opportunity for us to look at some of these things that are broken within our world, like our healthcare system, like our willingness to support our population when they can't go into work. They just denied, the senators just denied the, I forget what it was called, but it was some act to like provide emergency paid sick leave or something like that. And so, all of these problems are there already. The pandemic just magnifies everything, and it really is truly an opportunity for our world to do better for its people. And so my hope is always that we'll learn. Unfortunately, what history has shown is that human beings don't learn very well. We are literally repeating all of the same shit that we have since the inception of the human race. But the healthcare issue, the stock market issue, the policies issue, like all of that stuff is nothing new. It was all existing 2 weeks ago before the pandemic broke out. It's just, are we now that the magnifying glass is on it, willing to actually do something about it is the biggest question. And unfortunately, what I've seen is that we're not. I hope for something else. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Shock the system. Let's shake it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be shocked, in my opinion. I think things were going too well. It just seemed kind of eerie. You know what I mean? Like, the stock market was going up, and we knew it had to come down. And I don't know. It just felt like things were going too well. And I don't know. But going back to you, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And what I hear entrepreneurs say a lot of the time is what the number one thing they want is freedom, right? Like, I don't know if you hear that, but when I speak to entrepreneurs and I ask them on the show, like, what is it that you really want? Like, why are you an entrepreneur? And most of the time it's freedom.
That's why I'm an entrepreneur. Let's be honest. It's my top core value.
I was talking. Yeah. I mean, freedom is nice, but it's like, freedom from what? Is it freedom from your boss? Is it freedom from?
So for me, it's not freedom from anything. It's freedom towards something. And I realized this last year is that, yes, there's time freedom. Yes, there's money freedom. Yes, there's movement freedom. Like, there's all of those freedoms. But for me, what entrepreneurship is the freedom to be 100% my unapologetic self. Like, I get to be me, and I get to do me all day, every day. I don't have to shut myself off like I used to have to do. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I don't have to stop swearing. I don't have to lie, or like, I don't have to do anything that's not in alignment with who I am at my core. And so freedom for me is just that. It's moving to closer and closer and closer towards myself. And further, I guess it's freedom from not myself, from being something that I don't want to be, or that I, oftentimes with jobs, people have to be a certain way.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So I have a question with that, right? Because I was thinking about that too. I had a friend of mine who's a psychotherapist said that to me. He was like, what do you really want? I'm like, freedom. And he's like, well, be careful with that, right? Like, because right now you just have one boss. However, I have clients and I have like 30 bosses right now, and I have to make them not happy, but you have to kind of, you got to make it work for them too. Like, do you ever feel like that? Because but here's the thing, right? So your clients hire you because you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you don't have to be afraid to be yourself, right? But some people who are just starting out, they can't. I don't know if they have the freedom to be themselves. Like, I feel like some entrepreneurs still tailor their services, still tailor their business to those clients, those bosses, those 30 individuals, but it's not real freedom, right? I mean, it's kind of like fake.
They do.
How do you get? Well, but how do you get to that point where you're 100% free to be who you are?
So it's been a process. And I will say, like 5 years ago, I was exactly in that same spot that you just described. That I was pretending to be someone, not that I've like ever really fully done this, but I definitely played into the like, well, the coaching industry says I have to do it a certain way in order to be successful. And that's just 100% not who I am. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people enter into business that way thinking, well, I have to be this kind of person in order to be successful in my business. And the interesting thing for me has been the more I've shed that and the more I've gotten rid of that, the better my business gets and the more that people want to work with me. You know, we think we have to be someone that we're not in order for other people to accept us or want to work with us or want to pay us. And the reality is it is literally the exact opposite. And the more that you can come into acceptance of who you are, what your quirks are. I had someone last year ask for a refund from me because I swore. And I was like, okay, really? Like one of my modules, also, I should ask, I always mean to ask at the beginning, can I swear on your podcast?
I'm surprised you haven't already.
Okay. Well, I just like to get permission first. And if I forget to get permission before I just like try to, so
It's
I had
too
a
late.
Course. I had a course and the 5th module in the course was Fuck the Hustle. And she bought the course having seen the entire curriculum and then had the audacity to ask me for a refund later because I swore. And I was like, wow, like, cool. Yes, please take your money and like, go. I don't want you. And the more and more and more I do that, I've had so many people message me and be like, oh, your stuff would just be so much better if you didn't swear. And I'm like, thanks for the feedback. Have a nice life. Bye.
Don't you
And
feel like some people swear like it's not them though? Like you feel like, I mean, Gary Vee swears a lot.
Yeah.
Like, do you even think, I wonder if that guy even swears that much. Like, I don't know.
I think he does. He's a New Yorker.
So?
But like
do you swear that much?
I
like, do you drop the F-bomb?
not that
like,
much.
No?
Not that much. I do say fuck often. And I actually very much enjoy, I have a product line and one of the designs is 0 fucks. And I have a necklace that says 0 fucks on it. Like it's a thing that I like actively live by.
Mm-hmm.
But back to like the point of your question is that like, if you are new in business and you think you have to be someone you're not in order to be successful, I would very, very, very much challenge you to flip the script on that and really start radically accepting yourself in a way you never have before. Because for me, I don't feel indebted to my clients. I feel like I get to show up and co-create with my clients in a really beautiful way. I love talking to my clients. I don't feel held down by them or held back by them. I don't feel like they're my bosses. I feel like we come more into a partnership than anything else. And it's like the most beautiful and divine experience. I fall in love with all of my clients and it's so much fun.
That sounds amazing. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, for me, like, I mean, this journey has just been this one sole mission has been to find out who I am. Like, you know, for the longest time, like even in high school, I would just go, you know, I didn't know who I was. In college, I didn't know who I was. And when I first came out into the workforce, I didn't know who I was. Like, I'm still finding myself. But that's probably one of the hardest things. Like, you know, somebody could say, hey, Trey, you know, with the podcast, just be yourself, you know, like, you know, just show your characteristics, you know, drop a couple F-bombs in there, just be who you are. But sometimes it's hard because you don't really know who you are. Like you're trying to be yourself and you're trying to be genuine. I mean, at deep down in your heart, you know who you are. But when you like start like really stepping out into an area where you're really passionate about, like you're even questioning that. Like I know some of my friends who are entrepreneurs, like, you know, it's just you're taking a leap of faith. You're just kind of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, and then, you know, trying to be yourself, like whatever your heart says that you are. Like when you feel good, like when you like this conversation, like this is totally who I am. Like I do not care what other people think about me. I do not care what other people think about the conversations that I have. Like we can talk about whatever you want, Bri. Like I don't care. Like because I know that people are going to get more out of this conversation if it's just you and I, like genuinely speaking and having an authentic connection, than if I have a list of 8 questions about entrepreneurship.
Totally. And for me, like, it's interesting that figuring out who I am has been more of an unlearning process than a learning process.
Unlearning
Like,
process. Like, all right, hit on that.
well, because what you mentioned like being in high school, and I feel like as we're growing up, we get all of these kind of like expectations and layers and understandings and things put on us that may or may not be ours, and they're put on us by our parents or society or our culture or, any of these various things. I'll give you a prime example, right? As women, the second we are born, we are literally expected to be mothers. I went to visit a girlfriend of mine who just had a baby, and she had a daughter, and I'm visiting the baby in the hospital or whatever, and someone said something about like, oh, when she's a mom, and I was like, dude, she's less than a week old, and you're already projecting upon her your expectations of who you think she should be. What if she doesn't want to be a mom? Like, what have you ever considered that? And so like, so much of me getting to the core of who I am has been shedding and letting go of all of the layers and expectations that other people, society, culture, everything is like placed upon me. And the more that I can let go of other people's truths, other people's beliefs, other people's projections, the closer and closer and closer I get to understanding who I am.
What was the hardest thing to let go?
Honestly, a lot of the money stuff.
Oh.
Because I grew up, actually I had, don't know what your listeners are into, but I'm very into like psychics and things like this. So I have a girlfriend that's clairvoyant, and we were talking about, money stuff for me. And she's like, you don't have money issues. She's like, energetically, like you as a person don't like money struggles is not like your thing. Energetically, that's not your thing. She's like, but your lineage, she's like, I can see it from your mom to your grandmother to your great grandmother. And she's like, it literally goes back so far. I can't even see the end of the line of how far back your like money struggles go. And so much of the beliefs and stuff that I had to kind of get rid of and unlearn were scarcity beliefs that I was taught. And I bless my mom and bless my grandmother. My grandmother lived through the Depression. Her mother had to put her in foster care for them to survive the Depression. My great grandmother got divorced from her husband back in the 1920s because he was an alcoholic bootlegger, and she got excommunicated from the Catholic Church. And then when they got divorced, she couldn't have anything in her name because back then women couldn't own anything. So she had nothing to her name. My mom was a single mom. My dad died when I was 15, owing her a ton of money for child support, right? Like, so all of these experiences and things that I was taught growing up was all around like the struggle around money. And it's been difficult for me to keep remembering the truth of abundance after having been faced for, however many years with all of this like scarcity thinking.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Like that's insane. Like your great grandmother in the 1920s getting excommunicated with the church.
She was badass.
That is like, do your parents or your mom or your grandmother ever tell stories? I feel like she like led the women's mission back then or something. Like I feel like that's something she probably.
Grandma would tell some stories. Like we heard a lot of stories about her like being in foster care. I don't know how old she was when she got put in foster care, and unfortunately she passed a little over a year ago. But great grandma Ackerman was a badass. She to think about in the 1920s, like what a woman was facing for divorce in general, and then looking at not only that, but you're also going to have to lose your faith, your church. You're also going to have to lose everything that you own to your name. You're also going to have to lose your children. She was like, I feel like I channel her a lot because I'm like, what would Grandma Ackerman do? She was unwilling.
Where was she at? Like what part of the country?
DC.
She was in DC.
Yeah, my grandmother grew up in your area. I think my great grandma's buried in Arlington because then she ended up marrying another man. My grandmother and her siblings came then back to live with them. And she worked for the State Department in DC, my great grandma.
I mean, you just imagine back then, like that is tough, like to lose everything and still continue on. Like you talk about a life lesson.
She fought her way back too. Like she was, as far as I know, like fairly wealthy when she passed then as well. So yeah, she fought her way back and was unwilling to be beaten down by losing literally everything.
But does that put pressure on you though? Like to remember her like this superstar, and like, you know, you get into situations where you have to prove to her that you're worthy?
No, it fuels me more than anything, because for me, the perspective is I'm born of that. Like that gumption that she had runs through my veins. And not because I'm worthy or unworthy, but simply because like I am, and it does. And so for me, and I know more about my ancestry as well. My mom's been researching my like great aunt used to live in New York City, and she did automatic drawing, and she would go into a trance and she would channel mandalas and sacred geometry. And so like I look at the women that I come from and I'm like, what a blessing that like these women have shown me and given me in my DNA all of these beautiful things that are possible, and all of this gumption and power and connection to the universe and source and faith, and being able to take those leaps and face hard times and come out on the other side. So for me, it's more fuel than anything. Like, it's not like I'm having to live up to it. It's more like I know that whatever I'm facing, I can do because of the women who have come before me.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with you, because like I'm in the same boat. I come from a long line of men who are just strong, and like, you know, leadership is strong. But for some people it can be intimidating, because it's like, man, now I have this pressure to live up to this idea what I should be. Like, what would your advice be to them?
Honestly, to forgive themselves and to remember their truth, because like that comes from an energy of like lack and comparison, rather than an energy of like alignment and abundance. And so like, you know, are you going to fuck up? Yeah, probably. We all do. All of us fuck up all the time. I fuck up all the time. And like, for me, it's less about being hard on myself and more about forgiving myself and asking better questions about like, okay, what can I do better next time? So if you are hard on yourself about those things, give yourself a break. Like, I'm sure that Grandma Ackerman wasn't perfect. I'm sure she messed things up. I'm sure she had moments where she broke down, just like everyone else. No one's perfect. So don't hold those people on such a pedestal. Humanize them, and, you know, bring yourself higher up on that pedestal level to meet them, and just be easier on yourself. And remember that because someone else was able to do it, especially someone that was related to you, that means that it's possible for you as well.
Love that. I love how you keep referring to the universe and the source. Like, what is your belief system? Like, what do you believe? Like, it sounds like you believe in one source. You believe in a soul coming down to learn lessons and reconnect with that source. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
all of
believe
those
in
things.
like reincarnation and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you read Stephen Cope at all, The Great Work of Your Life?
I have not. Have
you read, I can't even say it, like he talks about I'm just going to say the Gita because I can't say the beginning of it. Let me see here. It is, he talks about it quite a bit. It's like an Indian.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to
Bhagavad
totally butcher
Gita.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gita. I have to go on YouTube and like listen to it before I can actually say it. Have you read that? The Gita?
I have not read
Bhagavad
that
Gita?
either, but I
You
actually probably
have
should.
to. 100% you have to. Like, it has changed the game for me as a creator. It lives by like 4 rules, essentially. Know your dharma, which is your life's work. Do it with all your being. Let go of the fruits and turn it over to God. So do selfless work, because suffering, in our line of work is trying to get famous, trying to get the riches, trying to hold on to the
Right.
fruits of our labor. And essentially it teaches the idea that we are not entitled, but we are able to work, but we're not entitled to the fruits. Like, let go of the fruits. Stops, you're suffering when that's all you're thinking about. You're suffering because you're not good enough. You're suffering because you're looking at everyone else's success and you're worried about worldly possessions, where this book teaches you 100% to find your dharma and do your dharma and let go of the fruits and be free. That's freedom, to find what your soul is here to do and what is here to learn, and do it 100% full out. Let go of the fruits and trust in God that he will, take care of you the rest of the way. I mean, it is some powerful stuff. I love it. You got to read it.
Yeah, I just added it to my Amazon wish list. It's interesting because it's totally so many of the things that from what you're saying, so many of the things that I kind of like already do and have like already been tapping into. Because I totally, like, I have been practicing so much non-attachment in the especially in the last few months, but like really in the last few years. And like you said, letting go of the expectations, letting go of the attachments, like really just being in your alignment, trusting that you are taken care of, knowing that all of the fruits of the labor that you need are coming to support you. So I guess I've kind of been like living it without having read it, but I'm gonna read it as well.
So I'm
one
gonna
of the
quote
books
here
that I
real
would.
quick. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just
I was just gonna
paraphrase a
recommend a
little
different
bit
book.
here.
So
Let me paraphrase this, and then you
yeah.
can recommend me that. So, your dharma is your way of staying connected with your true nature. It is the particular way in which you can devote your life to the welfare of all beings. Your dharma is your very own way of expressing the truth. Your dharma is the one place where you can penetrate the fleeting world of form, where you can live as I live, fully connected with the whole world of mind and matter, where you can live in the sure knowledge that you are the doer, but only a vehicle of the great doer.
Yeah.
So what book are you going to recommend?
So I was going to recommend The Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. Have you read that one?
Oh, I have not. The Journey of Souls?
Yeah. Michael Newton is a hypnotherapist, and he brings people. So I don't know if you've done hypnotherapy before, but there's something called a past life regression where you can go back into a past life and get clarity around it. But what he does is a life between lives regression. And he basically brings people into the space between their past life and their present life, and essentially brings them back into soul form. And it's fascinating. It's basically, he has 3 books now, and they're all case studies of how soul families work and how soul contracts work and how we prepare as souls to come into human bodies and experience life on earth, and how we process after we've passed the life that we've just lived. And it's fascinating. In fact, I first read them about 10 years ago. I'm getting ready to reread them. And his 3rd book just came out last year, so I don't even have it yet. But they're really, really interesting books. And, you ask, like, what do you believe in terms of source, souls, reincarnation, like all of that stuff. I feel like so many of my beliefs were sparked by these books, because when I read these books, everything in them just was like rang and resonated as truth through my entire being. So they're cool. They're really cool books.
When was that for you though? Like, at what point in your life when you started, discovering these texts, and this way of living. Like, how old were you? Like, and what triggered that?
So, a few things triggered my kind of like spiritual awakening. One was a boss that I had at the time. My boss, most of the 8 years that I was in that counseling job, I joked, I call her my spiritual gateway drug, because I would get into work and not be feeling well, and she'd be like, here, hold on to this rock. It'd be like a crystal, and then she'd be like, here, lift up your tongue, like, let me just put this drop under it. And it'd be like a tincture of some sort. And she introduced me to Reiki. And then another entry point into spirituality for me was a huge car accident that I had. And so, yeah, she got me in with like a Reiki healer, and she got me into yoga. And she was kind of the one that like got me going with all this stuff. And then I just never really stopped. But my car accident, I was 24, going on 25. So it was, my mid 20s is when I really started opening up to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm getting familiar with it now, like in the last year or so. Like, I was raised Methodist and became Catholic, and then was looking for something more of a connection, more of a relationship with a higher being, whether it be God or the universe, and more so my purpose here on earth. And I started coming across books like with near-death experiences and like just reading about those. And then I came across some other texts, and it was just crazy how similar they were. Like, some of the Indian mystical texts were very similar to some of the ideas that the near-death experiences books pushed out there. Like, they would feel the same thing. Like, they would leave their bodies. Like, you can do this in a meditation as well sometimes, if you get to this higher level of meditation and concentration, where you can leave your body and go into the, to the consciousness and be one with everything and experience.
I've done it once.
You've done that once?
And I have not, I keep trying to get back there to do it again. And I just like have not been able to do it, but I did it once. And the whole time I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it.
Like, was that like pure meditation, or was that like mushroom induced?
No. I've never done mushrooms before. It was honestly from Kundalini.
What is that?
It is a type of yoga that it incorporates breath work. It incorporates movement. It really incorporates a lot of like chakra activation before you meditate. And so there are people that say that breath work is as effective or like produces similar results as like LSD and mushrooms. Like, breath work can be very hallucinogenic. And I think that I just got into a place where I was like, like the energy in my body was just so aligned and like so activated, and my power center was turned on, and just like, I don't know. It was last January in a 3-day workshop, and it was incredible.
Power center.
So crazy.
Is that, like, where is that for you? Like, where is that at? Like,
it's your solar plexus. So it's like right beneath. It's like right where your sternum is.
Really?
I think it's called your sternum. Right where your your rib cage is.
Yeah. So like, I feel this, like, I just don't know what it is. Like, so I've been, Paul Selig, met him last week, and he was doing, he's a channeler. I don't know if you're familiar with his work or not. And we met with him, and he was channeling and going over some of his teachings from the guides. And, I'll tell you what, like, I told my wife, I was like, I've had one beer, and my energy level is just insane. Like, it's not the beer at all. Like, I felt and I felt like a warmth, like an energy, like, I don't know, like something in my, like you just described. And that's why I asked you about it, right? Like the sternum area, where it just feels like I can just feel this energy that is just kind of like there, and it's like pulsating. It's like, it just feels good. And it happens sometimes when I get into deep meditation. Like, if I can get into a deep meditation after a run and like really get into a really good mindset, it starts happening then too. But I'm just learning about that now. And a lot of people are probably listening to this being like, what are you guys talking about? But it's real.
People
I'm
talk
telling you.
about the runner's high. And,
Yeah.
and basically, like, running is like it would produce similar results in the body as like Kundalini would.
Mhm.
So
What's the
I don't.
endorphins, right? Like the endorphins that are just flowing throughout your body, the chemicals that feel good. You know, the runner's high, you're chasing that high. But
And
it
the
wasn't.
oxygen
But
that's just flowing through your blood. And I mean, like, because that's something we as humans don't actually really breathe consciously that much. Like, we breathe most days, right? But like, we don't actually breathe in a way that like running and breath work and Kundalini and things do for you. And so there is something, I think, neurologically and just physically about getting oxygen into your body that helps you get into that more aligned state as well.
Bri Seeley, how can people get a hold of the #1 coach on Google?
The #1 entrepreneur coach. Yes. Well, you can Google entrepreneur coach on Google and I will literally be the first result. And if you'd like a more direct approach, my website is my name, briseeley.com. And then my favorite place to hang out, if you like are listening to this and like, oh my God, I want to jam with Bri about some like crazy spiritual cosmic shit, is Instagram. So if you come find me on Instagram, my handle is Bri Seeley. Make sure to send me a direct message and tell me that you found me here on this episode. I'm obsessed with Instagram and I love having conversations with people on Instagram.
I think I follow you on Instagram. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah?
I think so.
I should look and make sure I'm following you back. That's always a thing.
What's the handle one more time? What's the handle one more time?
BriSeeley.
There she is.
Straight down.
Yeah, I follow you. What are you talking about? You got a great Instagram account. Been following you for years.
Oh.
479 posts, all of them fantastic. Bri, what do you want your legacy to be?
Honestly, so I am disheartened and completely, totally, and utterly discouraged by the success rates that entrepreneurs face in the world. And by success rate, I mean failure rates. 75% of entrepreneurs will fail at their business. And it kills me. It breaks my heart because none of us get into business to fail. And so my legacy is honestly going to be like turning that statistic around. That's what I'm here for, is to help more people get in touch with their unapologetic selves, to create that freedom, to be themselves, to share their gifts with the world, and to be paid well for it.
I love it. Her name is Bri Seeley. She's amazing. She's a great entrepreneur coach. She is #1 and Google. So check her out. Bri, thank you so much for hanging out. I want to say thank you to Bri Seeley for hanging out with us today and just taking the time to just crush this interview. Like, I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. Please leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from. It helps me scale. And if you want to follow me on social distancing. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Downstray and Instagram at TDowns80. I have a Facebook group, Your Superior Self. Check me out at yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message. And happy Memorial Day. Thank you to those who serve our country. Thank you to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, they paid the ultimate price. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later.